on the sacred banks of the eternal river, where the waters of destiny whisper to the wind, begins a love story drenched in beauty and sorrow. This is from the Adi Parva of the Mahabharata. King Shantanu, the mighty ruler of Hastinapura, a warrior, a hunter, a king used to conquest. But that day, he was conquered. There, on the banks of the Ganga, stood a woman unlike any he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered like molten gold. Her hair flowed like a dark river embracing the moon. Her eyes, deep, luminous, celestial. He stood still, breath forgotten, heart surrendered. Was she a celestial maiden from the heavens? A dream shaped into flesh? He approached her. She turned. A blush rose upon her face. A faint smile trembled upon her lips. And in that single glance, two destinies intertwined. "I am Shantanu," he declared. "Be my queen. Marry me." She smiled gently. "I will be yours," she said. "But you must promise me one thing. Never question me. Never oppose anything I do. The moment you do, I will leave you forever." Love doesn't calculate consequences. And so the king agreed. She became his queen. She was called Ganga. Time passed. A son was born. Joy filled the palace. But joy turned to horror. Ganga took the newborn child, walked to the river, and cast him into its waters. Shantanu saw. His soul screamed, but his lips remained silent. He had promised. Again a son was born. Again the river claimed him, not once, not twice. 7 sons, 7 innocent lives, swept away into the flowing Ganga, and the king endured, because love can blind even the strongest. The 8th child was born. Ganga moved once more toward the river, but this time Shantanu followed. His heart was no longer silent. He seized her arm. "No more!" he cried. "How can a mother destroy her own child? Spare this one!" The promise was broken. The air grew still. Ganga's face changed. Not anger, not hatred, but something deeper, sadness and release. "My lord," she said softly, "I am no mortal woman. I am Ganga of the heavens. You were once King Mahabhishak. We were bound by destiny. These children were the 8 Vasas, celestial beings cursed to be born on earth. I promised them freedom the moment they were born. But this 8th child, he must live. He shall be called Devavrata, the child who would one day become Bhishma, the grand pillar of the Kuru dynasty, the man of the terrible vow, the warrior who would choose the time of his own death." "I must leave," Ganga said. Shantanu stood frozen. He had gained a son, but lost his world. She looked at him one last time, with love, with compassion, and then, like mist dissolving into dawn, she vanished, leaving behind a king, a river, and a silence deeper than grief. Sometimes divinity touches human life, but mortal hearts are rarely strong enough to hold it. This was not merely a love story. It was a story of destiny, of vows, of sacrifice, and of the birth of one of the greatest heroes the world would ever know. 16 years had passed, 16 long years, since the day Ganga vanished into mist, carrying with her the 8th child. King Shantanu lived on. His heart did not break. It simply endured. He ruled as an ideal king. His people prospered. Justice prevailed in Hastinapura. But when the day ended, when the court fell silent, loneliness waited. And so he returned again and again to the only place that remembered her, the banks of the sacred river. One day, something impossible happened. The mighty Ganga was not flowing. The river stood still. Shantanu walked along the banks in disbelief. Then he saw it, a wall of arrows, perfectly woven, interlocked with divine precision. Not a single drop of water passed through. The king stood stunned. Who possessed such mastery? who could command a river. And then he sensed a presence. She stood beside him, serene, radiant, Ganga. Santanu's breath faltered, tears welled in his eyes. Ganga, he whispered, have you taken pity on me at last? All these years I have been alone. Come back, let us begin again. But Ganga's eyes were calm. My lord, she said gently, when the sun has set, can you ask it to return and make the same day live again? The sun will rise again, but it brings a new dawn, never the old one. No one can go back. Santanu lowered his head. But tell me, he asked, who has dared to hold you in check? You, whom even my love could not restrain. A thunderous roar broke the air. The arrows collapsed. The river surged forward once more, and from the distance, a youth came running, radiant, strong, noble. His face shone with triumph. Mother, he cried, I did it! I stopped the river again. Santanu stared in awe. Ganga turned toward the king. Your son, she said softly. Santanu's voice trembled. Our son? Yes. She looked at the youth. Devavrata, bow to your father. The young warrior fell at the king's feet. Santanu lifted him up and embraced him. 16 years of emptiness vanished in that single moment. Ganga spoke proudly. This is why I have come. He has been trained by the greatest of teachers. By Vasisht, he has mastered the Vedas and the Vedangas. From Brihaspati, he has learned the science of kingship. And from Parshuram, master of celestial weapons, he has mastered archery. He is skilled in every art befitting a Kshatriya. I have prepared him to be the heir of the illustrious Pauravas. This hero, I now give to you. The name Devavrata would one day echo across history. He would later be known as Bhishma, the man of the terrible vow, the pillar of the Kuru dynasty, the warrior who would choose the moment of his own death. Having fulfilled her promise, Ganga looked once more at Shantanu. There was no sorrow this time, only completion. She faded into the horizon. Shantanu stood still, but today he was not alone. Beside him stood his son, strong, brilliant, fearless. Together, father and son mounted their horses, and as they galloped toward Hastinapura, the river flowed freely once more, not as a symbol of loss, but as a herald of destiny. From the banks of the Ganga had returned a prince who would one day shape the fate of the entire Mahabharata. And this was only the beginning. 4 years passed, 4 peaceful years. In the company of his son, King Shantanu found happiness again. Devavrata, brave, wise, devoted, became the light of his father's life. The years of loneliness seemed forgotten. They were inseparable. And in time, Shantanu crowned him Yuvaraja, heir to the throne. The people rejoiced. The kingdom prospered. But fate was waiting. Happiness, when too pure, invites a test. One day the king rode alone into the forest on a hunt. Suddenly, a fragrance touched the air. Not the scent of flowers, not sandalwood, not any perfume known to man. It was intoxicating. It seemed to call him. Shantanu followed the scent, drawn forward by curiosity and something deeper. It led him to the banks of the Yamuna. There, by the flowing waters, stood a young woman tying her boat. Her form was graceful, her face luminous, her eyes lowered in modesty. She wore the simple garb of a fisher girl, yet she seemed born to be a queen. The fragrance came from her. Shantanu approached her. "Who are you?" he asked. She replied gently, "I am a fisher girl. My father is the chief of the fishermen. It is my duty to ferry people across the Yamuna." Her voice was soft, but the king's heart was no longer steady. Without hesitation, Shantanu went to her father. "I am Shantanu of Hastinapura," he declared. "Your daughter has captivated me. I seek her hand in marriage." The fisherman bowed respectfully. "My lord, No greater honor could come to my daughter. But there is one condition. The king frowned slightly. Speak. The fisherman spoke carefully. It must be promised that the son born of my daughter shall be heir to the throne of Hastinapura. Silence, heavy, unmoving. Santanu's mind went back 16 years. He remembered the day when Ganga had returned his son to him. I present this hero to you, she had said. He remembered the pride in his heart when he crowned Devavrata. He remembered the bond between father and son. And now, he was asked to take that future away. Without a word, Shantanu turned, he mounted his chariot, and rode back to Hastinapura. He spoke to no one, but his face had changed. The fragrance still lingered in his thoughts. The image of the fisherman's daughter haunted him. Her name, Satyavati. He longed for her, but he wouldn't betray his son. A king may command armies, but he cannot command the heart. And so Shantanu suffered, torn between love and duty, between desire and righteousness, between the present and the future of his dynasty. He had once broken a promise to save a son. Now he would keep a promise and break his own heart. But destiny had not finished its design. For soon, Devavrata would learn of his father's sorrow, and history would witness one of the greatest vows ever taken. Something had changed. Devavrata could see it. The laughter that once filled the palace had faded. The warmth in his father's eyes had dimmed. King Shantanu no longer spoke as he used to. The hunt stopped. The joy vanished. Silence took its place. Devavrata tried again and again to discover the cause, but the king remained distant until one day. My son, Shantanu said slowly, you are my only child. You are worth more to me than 100 sons. But a single son is like having only one eye. If fate takes you in battle, the house of the Kurus will perish. This fear haunts me. Devavrata listened. He understood, but he said nothing. He turned and walked away. The prince went to the king's charioteer. You are my father's confidant, he said firmly. Tell me the truth. After hesitation, the charioteer spoke. My lord, the king loves a woman. She is the daughter of a fisherman. Her father demanded that her son be made king. Your father could not grant that condition, so he returned heartbroken. Devavrata's eyes hardened. His father denied happiness? That was unthinkable. Without informing his father, Devavrata rode to the banks of the Yamuna. There stood the fisherman. Without delay, the prince spoke. You wish your daughter's son to inherit the throne? So be it. I renounce my claim to the kingdom. The fisherman was stunned, but doubt lingered. What of your sons? He asked cautiously. What if they contest the throne? The air grew still. Devavrata's face became resolute. Then came the vow that shook the heavens. Hear me, Devavrata declared. I vow before heaven and earth, in the name of my mother Ganga, in the name of my Guru Parashurama, in the name of Dharma itself, I shall never marry. I shall remain celibate for life. I shall father no child. The heavens trembled. Flowers rained down from the sky. A voice echoed across the worlds. Bhishma, the one who has taken a terrible vow. From that moment, Devavrata became Bhishma. Bhishma returned to Hastinapura. He placed Satyavati before his father. Be happy, father. Shantanu was shattered. Pride, sorrow, gratitude, guilt, all warred within him. In his love for his son, he granted him a boon. Bhishma would choose the moment of his own death. Death itself would wait for him. Such was the power of a father's blessing. Shantanu married Satyavati. 2 sons were born, Chitrangada, Vichitravirya. Time passed, Shantanu grew old and departed from this world. The burden of the kingdom fell upon Bhishma. He crowned young Chitrangada and ruled as regent. Peace prevailed, but destiny is relentless. A celestial being, a Gandharva king, also named Chitrangada, challenged the mortal prince. On the field of Kurukshetra, they fought, and Santanu's son fell. Bhishma performed the rites, installed Vichitravirya as king, and once again bore the kingdom upon his shoulders. The people were happy. Hastinapura flourished, but its true ruler sat not on the throne. He stood beside it, uncrowned, unmarried, unshaken, bound forever by a vow that changed history. The young king Vichitravirya had come of age. To Queen Satyavati, he was her last hope. To Bhishma, he was more than a brother. He was a son. And so, Bhishma resolved to find him worthy brides. News arrived from Kasi. The king of Kasi was holding a grand Swayamvara for his 3 daughters, Amba, Ambika, Ambalika. Kings from all of Bharatavarsha had gathered, but Hastinapura had not been invited, and that was an insult Bhishma would not endure. The hall glittered with jewels. King sat proudly, waiting to be chosen. Then Bhishma entered. Whispers turned into laughter. "Look, the celibate prince has come to a Swayamvara. Has he forgotten his vow?" The insults filled the air. Bhishma's voice thundered like a storm. "I have come, yes, but not for myself. I take these maidens for my brother, King Vichitravirya. If any among you has the courage, stop me." Before anyone could react, he lifted the princesses into his chariot. The kings attacked, but against Bhishma's might, they fell like dry leaves before a tempest. Only one warrior stood firm, the king of Salva. He fought valiantly. He even wounded Bhishma, but in the end, Salva's chariot was destroyed. Disarmed, defeated, Bhishma spared his life. The palace rejoiced, but a trembling voice broke the moment. It was Amba. "When you carried us away," she said, "I had already chosen Salva as my husband." Silence. Vichitravirya spoke first. "It is not right to wed a woman whose heart belongs to another." Bhishma agreed. "You are free to go to Salva." Amba left, hopeful. Amba stood before Salva. "Accept me," she pleaded. Salva laughed bitterly. "Bhishma won you in battle. By the law of warriors, you belong to him. Go back." Humiliated, shattered, Amba returned to Hastinapura. "You must marry me," she told Bhishma. "You took my hand. You fought for me. I have nowhere else to go." Bhishma's heart trembled with compassion, but his vow stood taller than mountains. "I cannot," he said softly. "I am bound by my oath." He walked away, and with that, Amba's love turned into fire. For years Amba wandered. Her grief hardened into vengeance. She sought help from the great sage, Parashurama, the guru of Bhishma. Parashurama summoned his pupil. "Marry her," he commanded. Bhishma bowed. "My lord, I cannot." The guru grew furious. "Then fight me!" Bhishma's heart broke. To raise arms against his guru, but to abandon his vow. Impossible. "I choose to fight," he said. For days and nights they battled. The earth shook, the heavens watched, neither yielded. On the final day, Bhishma prepared a celestial weapon capable of destroying the world. The gods intervened. Narada, Rudra. "Stop!" they commanded. "This is not your destiny." Bhishma lowered his weapon. The battle ended. Parashurama embraced him. "You are unmatched." Turning to Amba, he said softly, "I cannot bend him." Amba stood silent, her hope extinguished, but her resolve unbreakable. Thus was born a hatred that would one day return on the field of Kurukshetra. For Amba's story was far from over, and the vow that made Bhishma immortal in glory would also become the seed of his downfall. rejected, humiliated, denied justice by kings, by warriors, by destiny itself. Amba walked away from the world of men, but she did not walk away in defeat. She walked into the forest, with only one fire in her heart: revenge. Amba began a terrible penance. She denied herself food, sleep, comfort. Days turned to months, months to years. Her body weakened, but her resolve hardened. At last, a radiant presence appeared. It was Kartikeya, also known as Shanmukha, the son of Lord Shiva. He placed in her hands a garland of ever-fresh lotuses. "My child," he said, "whoever wears this garland shall be the one who kills Bhishma." Hope fled again in Amba's eyes. She now had divine assurance. Amba went from kingdom to kingdom. She approached mighty rulers, famous warriors, Kshatriyas proud of their valor. "Wear this garland," she pleaded. "Slay Bhishma." But none dared. Bhishma's name alone was enough to silence courage. Even when she reached King Drupada of Panchala, he too refused. "He is righteous," Drupada said. "He is invincible." In fury, Amba flung the divine garland onto a pillar in Drupada's hall. No one dared touch it. The garland hung there, like destiny waiting. Amba returned to the forest, her hatred now pure and undiluted. She performed even harsher austerities. Finally, Lord Shiva appeared. "My child," he said, "in your next birth you shall kill Bhishma." Amba protested. "What use is revenge if I cannot remember?" Shiva smiled. "You shall remember. You will be born in Drupada's house. You will first be a woman. Later, you will become a man. And you shall be the cause of Bhishma's death." Satisfied, Amba built a great fire and walked into it. Years later, in the palace of Drupada, a child was born. The child was named Shikandi. One day, while playing in the royal hall, the child saw something familiar: the garland of ever-fresh lotuses. Without hesitation, Shikandi took it down and placed it around the neck. Drupada trembled, but the child smiled calmly. "I was born for this." Years passed. The world believed Shikandi to be male. By the kindness of a yaksha, the transformation became real. Shikandi grew into a warrior, but inside burned the same flame, the same hatred, the same vow. Far away in Hastinapura, Bhishma ruled wisely, unaware that fate had begun to sharpen its blade. The girl he could not marry, the woman he pitied, the life he could not save, had returned, not as a bride, but as destiny. And one day, on the field of Kurukshetra, that destiny would stand before him. Thus, vengeance crossed lifetimes, and the vow that made Bhishma immortal in glory would one day bind him to a bed of arrows. And thus ends the first chapter of the Adi Parva from the great epic, the Mahabharata, from the love of King Shantanu and goddess Ganga, to the birth of Devavrata, to the terrible vow that shook the heavens, to Amba's fire of vengeance that crossed lifetimes. The foundations of destiny have been laid. Bhishma stands unshaken, but fate has already begun to move its pieces. In the next chapter, we enter a darker turn of events, the fall of Vikitravirya, the desperate decision of Satyavati, and the birth of a generation that will one day divide the world at Kurukshetra. If you felt the weight of this story, if you wish to walk further into this epic journey, stay with us. The story of the Mahabharata has only just begun. Until the next chapter, let the river of time continue to flow.